hell is other people. That's what Sartre believed. And when you think about it, maybe he was right. Have you ever felt trapped in someone else's expectations? Watched your self-worth collapse under someone's judgment? Then maybe you've been to Sartre's hell without even noticing. Within this play are some of the most profound observations about both the deep value and the great danger of forming close connections with others. Here, I will explore how Sartre conveys these ideas and what lessons we can take from them. But first, let's set the scene. The room is richly decorated, and 3 people are seated on separate sofas. The man, Garcin, was executed for abandoning his post in the army. He is tormented by his fear of being thought a coward. He also spent years mistreating his wife and engaging in countless affairs. One of the women, Inez, had an affair with her cousin's wife, who later took both their lives by filling the room with gas as they slept. The last woman, Estelle, had an affair and drowned the child that came from it. These are their crimes, the reasons why they have been chosen to be each other's eternal tormentors. With the setting in place, let's begin. When the unfortunate characters first step into the room, only Inez is honest about why she is there. Garcin and Estelle, on the other hand, immediately try to protect their sense of moral purity. But instead of shielding them, their desperate attempts to maintain a respectable image only serve to torment them further, becoming a key part of their suffering. While Inez fully acknowledges her wrongdoing, admitting that she acted cruelly toward her cousin, the other 2 struggle to reconcile their shameful past with their belief that they are, deep down, good people. Garcin masks his fear-driven decision to desert the army by insisting that he was simply standing by his pacifist principles, though even he seems to recognize this as an excuse. Estelle clings to the idea that she was a helpless young woman at the mercy of the world, even though she took the life of her own child. Both Garcin and Estelle are desperate to hold on to the belief that they are morally upright, despite their past actions. And this struggle quickly begins to tear them apart. Not only must they live with the knowledge of what they have done, but they also wrestle with the impossible task of seeing themselves as good people at the same time. Inez, on the other hand, does not carry this extra burden. She fully acknowledges her wrongdoings, which spares her from the added suffering of self-deception. Through this, Sartre reveals something crucial about how morality works in society, something that can unintentionally make us miserable. If we consider what morality is meant to do, at its core, it exists to regulate behavior. We label certain actions as wrong, like stealing or lying, so that society can function smoothly. The problem is that people are flawed. Almost everyone has done something that would be considered immoral at some point, whether it was shoplifting as a child, deceiving a friend, or abandoning a principle for personal gain. But because our moral system does not leave room for imperfection, we often feel compelled to bury these mistakes deep in our minds, unable to fully accept them. Fear of judgment forces us into a painful state of inner conflict, where we struggle to reconcile who we truly are with the image of who we think we should be. Sartre is not suggesting that morality should be abandoned, but his play highlights one of its painful side effects. Even though no one is perfect, we are often expected to pretend that we are. Have you ever been completely lost in a conversation, enjoying the moment without any self-awareness? Or perhaps you were out in public, simply going about your day, when suddenly, out of nowhere, you became hyper-aware of yourself, how you were walking, how your clothes looked, whether your hair was messy, or if there was something on your face. A carefree moment instantly turns into a wave of anxiety. This happens when you begin to see yourself through the eyes of an imagined observer. In Sartre's hell, The characters are doomed to be watched by one another at all times. There are no mirrors in the room, meaning the only way they can know what they look like is by relying on each other's descriptions. This forces them to constantly see themselves through the perspectives of others, making them vulnerable to judgment, not just about their appearance, but also about who they are as people. This relentless scrutiny slowly drives them to madness. One of the most striking moments in the play occurs when Inez offers to act as Estelle's mirror, describing how she looks. At first, this comforts Estelle, as Inez compliments her beauty. But the moment Inez feels that Estelle is judging her in return, she suddenly claims there is an ugly mark on Estelle's chin. Estelle is devastated. Without a mirror, she has no way to verify whether this is true or a cruel lie. Similarly, Garcin, trapped with only two other people, is left completely at their mercy. His sense of self-worth depends entirely on how they perceive him. Garcin pleads with the others to see him as courageous, not as a deserter who ran from his responsibilities. While Estelle is convinced, Inez refuses to change her mind, and this sends Garcin into despair. He becomes obsessed with gaining Inez's approval, even though she openly despises him. Just like Estelle, he has no way to receive an unbiased judgment of his character, nor does he have the space to reflect and reshape his own self-image. He is trapped, forced to view himself only through the opinions of others, and this makes him deeply unhappy. But is our reality so different from theirs? Unless you live in complete isolation, chances are you seek recognition, validation, and love from those around you. This is not strange. It is a fundamental part of being human. Sartre is showing us that, more often than not, we understand ourselves only through the reflections given to us by other people, their words acting like a distorted mirror. Can you truly believe you are brave if no one has ever called you that? Can you feel beautiful if everyone around you insists otherwise? Sartre suggests that for the most part, the answer is no, at least in our current way of living. And as long as this remains true, every social interaction will carry a level of anxiety or sadness. We are constantly searching for confirmation from others that we are who we believe ourselves to be. And that leads us directly into our next idea. Sartre's view on our relationships with others is both uplifting and unsettling. Other people are essential to how we experience life, and this can be both wonderful and difficult. It is not just that we are forced to see ourselves through their opinions. We actually seek out their judgment. If they see us negatively, we want the chance to prove them wrong. If they see us positively, their approval brings us joy. Sartre explains that we recognize other people as independent individuals, and this is both reassuring and frightening. On one hand, knowing that others exist as free beings means we are not alone. We have companions to share experiences with, to navigate life alongside. Without this, we would likely feel unbearably isolated. However, the very same freedom that connects us to others also makes them unpredictable. We cannot control how they see us, what they think, or how they act. And that uncertainty is what makes our dependence on others both rewarding and distressing. Whenever we care about someone or value their opinion, we open ourselves up to the possibility of being let down or rejected. We need others, and we need to be open with them. But this openness comes with a great risk, and no exit captures this reality perfectly. One of the most striking moments in the play is when Garcin, fed up with Inez and Estelle, desperately tries to leave the room. To his shock, the door suddenly opens. He is free to go. Yet, after a brief hesitation, he chooses to stay. He refuses to leave until Inez acknowledges that he is not a coward. Think about that. The door to his torment is wide open, but he remains because, Despite his frustration with others, he cannot bear the idea of leaving without earning their approval. As he says, "No, no, I couldn't leave you here, gloating over my failure, with all those thoughts about me running through your head." This moment reveals the complex and sometimes painful relationship we have with other people. We crave their acceptance and validation. And paradoxically, the more someone rejects us, the more we long for their approval. At the same time, the judgment of others plays a key role in shaping who we become. If we never saw ourselves through the eyes of those around us, we would miss out on important insights that help us grow and function in society. For Sartre, no one can truly exist alone. People are not formed in isolation. They take shape through the push and pull between their personal choices and the expectations of the world around them. Think about it like this. While you would instinctively avoid fire after experiencing its pain, you would not naturally understand the value of kindness unless others encouraged you when you were helpful and criticized you when you were not. Some argue that Sartre's perspective on social rules and morality is bleak, that he wishes people could exist as entirely independent individuals. But his view is more layered than that. He seems to acknowledge that other people are necessary for us to grow, yet at the same time, this reliance brings suffering, and that suffering deserves recognition. Elsewhere, Sartre suggests that it is through our interactions with others that we truly grasp our freedom and learn to take responsibility for our choices. So, it would be a mistake to say he views other people as entirely harmful. He simply sees the situation as complex. There is no way to enjoy the advantages of living in a society without also facing some difficulties. But what should we do with this understanding? Sartre does not offer a direct answer in No Exit, but if you don't mind a bit of speculation, I'd like to explore some thoughts of my own. When we examine the suffering of the characters in No Exit, we quickly see that none of it comes from physical pain. There are no torture devices, no direct harm being done. The only real suffering comes from being seen and judged by others, especially when those judgments clash with how they see themselves. But this only hurts if they hold on too tightly to a fixed idea of who they are. If Garcin were not so determined to prove he is not a coward, Inez's opinion of him would not torment him. If Estelle did not insist on believing that she must be admired for her beauty, she would not feel the need to constantly seek Garcin's attention. Their egos take up so much space in their minds that they become overly self-conscious, and this causes them unnecessary suffering. This idea connects to some Buddhist teachings. Many of the Buddha's lessons focus on reducing the human tendency to stake a claim on a rigid identity, to say, "This is who I am, and I will never change." The goal, instead, is to loosen the grip of a fixed sense of self so that one's emotions are not so deeply tied to it. Many Buddhist teachings suggest that people should avoid tying their identity to things that are constantly changing. In Estelle's case, they might advise her not to define herself so much by her beauty. Her looks may have given her power in the past, but they will not last forever. If she clings to them too tightly, she will always live in fear of losing them and will constantly seek reassurance from others that she is still attractive. They might also pull Garcin aside and explain that even if he once acted out of fear, his suffering comes from his desperate need to see himself as brave in every situation. But no one is fearless all the time. Expecting that of himself is only setting him up for endless disappointment. As for Inez, they might help her see that her hatred for Garcin is rooted in envy. He receives the attention from Estelle that she craves. Yet Estelle's feelings are beyond her control, and as long as she fights against that reality, she will only bring herself more pain. To explore this further, we could turn to psychoanalysis. We might ask each of these characters to dig deeper into their own minds and uncover what emotional need their egos are really trying to satisfy. Why does Garcin's struggle with bravery torment him so intensely? Why do Estelle and Inez crave validation and attraction from others to such an extreme degree? While we cannot answer these questions for them, we can certainly reflect on them in our own lives. What purpose does our ego serve? And when does it create unnecessary suffering? What hidden fears and desires shape the way we see ourselves in a distorted way? These are difficult questions to answer and even harder to ask. And while simply understanding them won't erase our struggles overnight, it can help us see why the opinions of others have such a strong impact on us. We can begin to recognize which parts of our self-image are most fragile, the ones easily shaken by outside criticism. We can also see when our ego, rather than protecting us, is actually working against us. In time, we might realize that although it feels like other people's judgments are what cause our pain, we are the ones allowing that pain to take hold by clinging to an ego that cannot withstand scrutiny. So maybe hell is other people, but perhaps it is also the suffering we bring upon ourselves when we confuse our ego with who we truly are. I hope you found this discussion thought-provoking. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and stick around the channel for more ideas on using deep thinking to improve your life.